YouTube, Dawson Ryder here, coming at you with more Power Rangers news for the mmpr Re-igition line. Busy week for this news, kind of pushed a lot of videos out of the side, and yet somehow I managed to make time for a Dragon Ball Daima series review. So if you like Dragon Ball, check that out, randomly plugging that. Those usually don't do that well, but I enjoyed making that. Anyway, we got Toyfair, so now we have a full look at basically the first wave, quote unquote, of what we're getting, because we do have a couple things that are going to be in 2026, because they put a big placard that says 2026 on there. Let's go ahead and get started though. Credit to, I think it's like Montyverse or something for a few of these pictures. A few of the others, I don't know where they came from. I just saw that they were popping up on Twitter and just Googled Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Re-igition Toyfair last 24 hours and then just found the images there. So let's start with figures. So we are indeed getting regular 5-inch figures. I was only a little confused because we got that silhouette and then they did that sort of press release where they put the Auto Morphins forward as if that was it. And I thought for a second maybe the other silhouettes were just some sort of renders, but there are two different ones. I was just confused for a minute. And these look okay. You know, they don't look the most accurate. I saw some person calling it the collector's line. I don't think that's what this is meant to be, because if it is, the comment section is just going to be vile comparing it to the Lightning Collection, who those same people trash the Lightning Collection, but you know how it is. New thing bad, that's the fandom cycle. But anyway, these look okay. You know, they kind of look exactly like what the silhouette setup is. They don't look exactly accurate, but they don't look as oddly thumbish as the Auto Morphin figures. Kind of reminds me of just the Bandai days where you're just kind of used to the figures not looking the most accurate. I mean, to be fair, not all the basic figures have always looked the most accurate, but I think in the last few years we've gotten a little closer with stuff like the Action Hero line and Hasbro's basic figures. You know, I'll reserve full judgment for when we get them, but, you know, it is what it is. You know, we did see more of the flip heads. I didn't see a clear picture of the civilian heads. There was one that I have that it's like zoomed out. I'll try to like zoom in as much as possible. Enhance. I mean, they look about what we usually get, where they kind of look like pudgy, clay-made versions of their faces and whatnot. But the most exciting thing on the figures front, actually wait, we're going to get to that in a second. There is villain figures as well. We heard about this. There's Rita, Goldar, I think Babu's in there, the Sphinx guy. And honestly, I think those look pretty good for what they are. Basically a, you know, basic figure line. I'm sure there's going to be people comparing them to the Lightning Collection ones, but these are meant to be basic figures. And I think for what they are, they look pretty nice. I'm not really a big villain guy. When there's cool main villains, I like to get them, but I've never been a Monster of the Week collector unless there's someone that stands out to me. But for those of you that like that, these don't look half bad in my opinion. More exciting on the figure front though, based on a comment that I sort of made in my last video, which was more of an educated wish, just kind of throwaway wish comment, was the 8-inch figures. They're going to actually be re-releasing versions of the 8-inch figures, and they look pretty close to what they looked like back in the day, kind of like when Hasbro re-released the Auto Morphin figures. It doesn't look like it's kind of a recreation like with Auto Morphin. It looks, I mean, it is recreation, but you know what I mean? It looks like they're trying to exactly be that. That's super cool. Those are my favorite retro mmpr style figures. I can't lie, I know the mmpr saturation thing is a whole thing and whatever, but I'm excited for these. Totally excited for these. Imagine if we could get these for other seasons too, because we went through In Space with these, or at least into like Season 2 stuff would be really neat. Maybe metallic versions, but that's honestly really cool. Right in front of them is some plushies, which I'm not all that interested in, to be honest, but they do remind me of those plushies we've been getting annually quite regularly for Sentai recently. Also, couldn't find a clear, like, picture of this, but like in the picture I saw for the 8-inch figures in the corner, there are these little mini figures that first I was thinking about those little mini collectible figures from Beast Morphers, but these more so remind me of these mmpr collectible figures that from back in the day that were like this. They were like little tiny, maybe 2-inch figures that were on these little platform. I don't even know who made them or what they were called. I think I tried to cover them on the channel at one point, but I have a bunch of them. If I can find some pictures or if I did do a review, I'll put footage up or whatever, but those remind me of that. Like, they aren't the greatest looking, I'm not like, oh my god, but that's actually kind of neat. Like, I'll admit, you know, just the overall like Season 1 lineup of here's the Season 1 Zords and the figures don't tickle my nostalgia, but for the first time in a while, mmpr nostalgia has been tickled a little bit with these 9-inch figures and these little kind of collectible figures that remind me of those old school ones, which is pretty neat. Also, last sort of figure related thing, which was kind of a nice surprise, at least in my opinion, is we are getting battle bikes. At first I thought they were original bikes because honestly I don't think about the Season 1 mmpr bikes all that much. I don't even remember Jew Ranger using them that much, but it seems like they are based off of the actual battle bikes from the show, but the figures do have like a kind of unique armor to them. I'll admit I'm kind of into this. This is one of the things I've seen that kind of sparks my interest a little bit more, just because I was curious if we were going to do bikes, and I never did get the battle bikes back in the day, and just seeing an actual figure there. Also, let's give it credit for being an actual painted figure. It looks like it might even be articulated. You know, back in the Bandai's last legs, we were basically almost just getting an unpainted figure, like one step away from them just including a chunk of plastic, and they didn't even mold the toy yet. Like, it was pretty embarrassing. Like, of all the things the fans whine and complain about, even for the kids line, you know, because the kids line, I think people need to calibrate their expectations, but I think that those bike figures as we got later into Bandai's life were pretty embarrassing even for kids. You know, I'm actually kind of excited for these because, like I said, didn't get the battle bikes. Kind of reminds me of when we used to get bike figures for Bandai, so I kind of like that. I wouldn't mind if they expanded into that, maybe did Shark Cycles. I wouldn't mind some original cycles. Honestly, I was kind of hoping we would get some more non-show original stuff with this because I thought that would be fun. Honestly, I do kind of miss that. We do have a look at the Morpher, which is kind of expected. Like, in terms of the coins aren't painted, that was, you know, because it's a kid's line, it's not a collector's line, that's expected. But for that type of thing, they don't look bad. But the Morpher looks oddly boxy. You know, there is like a promo photo with a kid holding it, so obviously it's going to look bigger when a kid's holding it. But just even seeing it in person, it looks very squarish, which is just funny because I can't help but think back to the playset they did for the Power Rangers 2010 line. But that looked more well-rounded, but it feels like a boxy shape would be weird for that. I'll be interested to get my hands on it. You know, it is a bit of an odd choice. I'm sure people will be very, you know, civil about it, but I don't know. It's very weird. We also get a look at the Blade Blaster, which looks honestly fine. Again, this isn't meant to be compared to the Legacy line one, but I think for like a kids line one, it looks pretty decent. So if you were looking for a Blade Blaster for your collection, it might be a decently cheap display piece. They also did show off a Dragon Dagger. It says it's 2026. I don't remember if it had a physical form or not, or if it had a cardboard cutout, but I think it had a physical form, but it looked fine. 2026 for that. I mentioned in that previous video, I'm surprised we weren't getting Dragon Dagger stuff, but obviously that makes sense. They're going to that for next year. And also interesting that like they're doing this here and the 2010 line just did a weird lightsaber thing, which is admittedly kind of cool for that. We do get more looks at the Zords, of course, which we've already seen before, but we kind of see more in-person pictures. And I didn't see anything or read anything about like an interview or anything like that, and I just said the word anything so many times. But it seems like to me, just from the picture, that the pterodactyl is kind of decently big, because I was wondering like, okay, I can see you selling all these individually, but pterodactyl feels like it's going to be kind of small. But it seems to me like, in general, pterodactyl's a little bit bigger than I thought, but also there's these little minifigures in front of it. I think they're going to try to sell like, hey, you get minifigures with the pterodactyl as a sale. They still look fine to me. Like, they look decent in terms of the shape. They do look a little bit cheaper. I'll be curious to see how they feel when I get it. I feel like it's going to be something I'm gonna have to wait to reserve full judgment for to when I actually have them in hand. Because they do look a little bit cheaper, but I think the molds actually look pretty solid. And you can do the tank mode as usual, and then they have the full Megazord together. And I gotta say, like, whoever set this up should have just changed things a little bit, because everything's kind of like not fully transformed and there's figures falling over. Just like make it look a little more professional. But I don't know. The Megazord, I think it's going to be neat to have a larger scale one, kind of like Voltron. It kind of feels like it's midway point between feeling accurate, kind of reminding me of the Play School Megazord, and I don't know. Like I said, I'll have to wait to reserve full judgment. I do think of this whole setup here, I think most of the prices for everything are pretty reasonable with the figures and the Morpher and all that, but I think the Megazord obviously is the biggest ask. I mean, obviously they're going for the whole collect and build instead of just a singular release, so it's going to be more expensive by nature of them designing it like that. But just for the way it looks and the way it feels a little bit cheaper, I think that's going to be the most expensive kind of ask for like a cheaper kids line, but we'll have to see. One thing I'll say is they're doing a lot more than I thought they would. I was really curious because from the early rumors it sounded like there might only be a couple little things, and even though there's a couple things for 2026, I like that there seems to be a big spread of stuff, so I'm hoping that means good shelf presence. I don't think it'll be as big as like the Turtles section, but Turtles has a pretty decent section in the toy aisle, whereas a lot of other franchises, especially PR before they started to disappear, got smaller and smaller sections, and I miss Power Rangers having a presence in the toy aisle, and I think it'd be nice to see them have a decent little section. I have to say I really like the look of the packaging. I think it looks pretty neat. The last thing I can think of is we did see some masks, like kind of like hang on your wall masks, not like full on Lightning Collection helmets, which is just kind of funny because I've seen quite a few comments since this news has come out about this line of people wanting them to finish the helmets. Like, they're never going to pick up where another company left off. That would be stupid. But I see people wanting the helmets, but it's funny that instead we're getting the masks, which, you know, those are kind of neat. They look decent. Like, they're kind of neat if you like to hang them on your wall, but that's another 2026 thing. So, yeah, I think it's a mixed bag. There's some things that I'm surprisingly more excited about than I thought. Like, I'm actually kind of looking forward to picking up the bikes, really looking forward to those 8-inch figures. I honestly might pick up the little, like, mini figures just because that's a little bit nostalgic as well. You know, everything else, I don't think it necessarily looks the greatest, but I don't think the sky is falling. Like, the fandom acted like the first look at these murdered their whole family. Like, remember, this is a kid's line, and people keep saying, like, oh, it's a kid's line, but it's for a show from 30 years ago. I'm like, it doesn't matter. It's still being targeted towards kids. They could be making a kid's line about Happy Days. Kids probably don't know what Happy Days is, but if they're making it for kids, that's what it's for. So just calibrate your expectations. I feel like Everything else, like, kind of looks okay-ish. I think the square Morpher looks weird. You know, the figures look fine, kind of reminds me of just Bandai days, like I said, where they're not very accurate to the show. The Zord, I'm going to have to wait for full judgment, but I think in general, I'm going to wait to see how I feel about them until I see them in person. I feel like, at least it seems to me, some of them might be prototypey on the floor, because, like, Pink's regular figure doesn't look unpainted, it doesn't look good, but, like, the promo photos look like it's more finished, so there might be some touch-ups there. But I obviously will be covering this, and if there's any more sort of announcements or news regarding this or anything else PR related, I will keep you updated. But let me know what you think in the comments as always. I'm sure it'll be very civil down there. But until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell to get notifications for my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.